Hey everyone, Aesop's here. Welcome back to this podcast video with Farmer Nash and CryptoKing. This is going to be a spicy one, talking about some of the hot topics within Play to Earn. Welcome in, guys.
Thank you, kind sir.
Thanks for having us.
Welcome. All right, so obviously we all are involved in the Play to Earn space to a different degree, and we have some different opinions. So let's kind of hash out some ideas here, and I'm really curious to hear your guys' thoughts on a couple different topics that we have ready for us here today. First thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is when it comes to NFT games, or crypto games in general, I should say, do you guys really prefer NFTs, tokens, a mix? What do you guys really think? Let's talk through here. What do we think is going to make the most sense for the future of NFT gaming or crypto gaming?
Sure.
Take Nash, it away. Do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I think there's the two main parts here. We have the NFTs first, and then we have the tokens. I think that NFTs are actually a vital part of NFT gaming. I think that it's going to give pretty much digital ownership to the holder. I think it can be used as a lot of things. There's a lot more utility that can be kind of derived from an NFT aside from just access to an alpha of a game. It can be a skin. You can upgrade your NFT, which can be like your wallet holding all of your stuff in game. There's a lot of different things you can do with it. When it comes to actual tokens, like ERC20 tokens, I don't think they're as important, and I really don't think they're necessary for crypto gaming. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we are yet to see an actual successful NFT, or excuse me, not NFT, actual successful gaming token. And by successful, I mean not crashing like 98% when, gameplay goes down or daily active users go down. So to sum things up here, I think NFTs are completely vital for the future of Web3 gaming, but I can definitely do without the crypto ERC20 tokens.
Cool. Yeah, I think you made some good points there, and I think the easiest way for me to explain it is I think at first we obviously need a really good game that people want to interact with, right? I mean, my future vision for NFT gaming is to imagine something like a fun competitive game. Let's grab League of Legends or Valorant, those fun AAA games that people play and have played for years. And then what we do is we just get, very similarly to what Valorant would have with their Riot Points. We have Riot Points as a cryptocurrency, and then all of the skins within the game are actual NFTs, and then there's an open marketplace where everyone can transact and trade with ease, right? And I think that's how it should really be. But until we actually have a game that people enjoy playing and interacting with, I don't think that we're really going to be there. And I personally believe that's our issue. But yeah, I think NFTs and tokens are both going to be needed to a certain extent once we're there, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, I think those are some great points. I think something interesting that I struggle with personally is thinking through Clash of Clans. You have gems, right? In the Riot Shop, right. You have the paid currency. You have a paid currency in almost every game ecosystem, and it works because it's locked to your account. You can't go out and trade with each other, and so it doesn't matter how much of it you buy, it's stuck in your account. And I think the interesting thing is, how do you really manage that when it comes to these cryptocurrency ecosystems where you can go and trade it, and it is subject to a 90% loss, as Nash said. I saw, Nash, you posted earlier, I think it was just the other day, actually, of the couple different screenshots of the tokens that were down 90% plus. And it's they're trying to take that premium token model that they have in normal mobile games, or even a lot of other games, actually, as well. And they're trying to take that and use it in cryptocurrency, but it's just failing. And I'm wondering if there's a way that they could do it successfully without it being so much of an issue. And maybe it's because there's a lack of utility right now. Maybe they're trying to give too much utility to it, and there's just trying to be too many tokens with too many different use cases that just don't get touched. I don't know there, but what do you guys think about that? Is there a way to actually get a gem currency or something like that in these crypto games without a 90% loss to that currency?
Yeah, I think the key is having a good game, right? I think that's the missing component right now. It's just having a fun game that people actually want to play. Because I think the big issue right now is people don't interact with the current existing play to earn NFT games because they're fun. They interact with them because they want to get into an ecosystem and they want to extract as much as possible and make some money. That's what I've experienced, at least. That's what I saw with Axie Infinity, Peg Axie, Krabata, Cyball, even some other games that are outside of that. But I think like when I look at the ecosystem, I think that Gala Games is probably doing the best out of everyone that I've seen, at least, in the fact that they have games like Spider Tanks, for example, that's actually fun to play. Like, you actually want to play the game. It's competitive. You know, you can get your NFTs. You can there are earning mechanics, but it's not like Overboard where that's like the main focus. And because of that, Gala Games, relative to like other gaming tokens, has done exceptionally well. So I honestly think that's the answer. But yeah, if you have any different perspective, let us know, Farmer.
Yeah. I think that fun game is number one, right? Because League of Legends is a fun game, but I've been playing it for like 12 years, and I barely spent like $100 or $200 on it. So I think if I was to play League and it was a play to earn game and I was getting a token, there's no way that I would be like buying skins with it, because I don't care about skins personally. Unless it's something super rare, or unless I earned it from a rank, I don't really care about it. So I would be cashing all my stuff out, and like I don't really need the money to survive, right? You know, I have money from other ways, but for people in other countries or even in the US that really need the money, like what we saw with Axie, they're gonna 100% cash out if they're
for sure,
no matter how fun the game is. So I think not only does the game have to be extremely fun, extremely addicting, and have a high daily active user count, but also the game needs to have the token or NFT built into its core gameplay mechanics. If you don't absolutely need that token for gameplay, it's going to zero because no one's going to use it. So I don't think a game really needs a tokenized economy, unless it's going to be like a massive MMO where there's enough players to support an entire currency of people transacting.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. I think you bring up a really good point there. And what this is kind of making me think about now is the Steam Marketplace, if you're familiar with, like, CSGO skins. Like, they never really had, like, a currency, right? People just traded with actual US dollars. So maybe the real answer here, I'm starting to think, is maybe just have stable coins and then just have scarcity through skins and collectibles. That could almost be like a middle ground without tokens if we don't want to go that route. That could potentially work as well. But, yeah, that is a really interesting point that you make there.
Yeah, I mean, the CSGO, especially back in the old days, like people were making thousands, some like 5-6 figures off of like skins and quote unquote gambling, all that. There was like the scams too, just like crypto. But yeah, I mean, CSGO you don't need a skin, right? You don't need a skin for your gun, but people still did it anyway. So imagine if you actually needed something like that in game. I think it would actually be really interesting to see how it would work in a massive game, not just something with 1,000 players that dwindles down to like 10 people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now in NFT gaming. And like, I've played League of Legends for many, many years too. And like, I've probably spent, I don't know, like $2,000 on skins at this point. Like, it's just an absurd amount. So I guess there'll be markets for everything, right? So it's really interesting just to see everyone's perspective here.
Do you think it could become a problem, though, if it was required? Like, for example, if I'm required to have a skin for my AK-47 in CSGO, right? I need a skin to be able to use it. I can't even use it without a skin. If you get that kind of a situation, wouldn't you have a sense of game launches, you have 100,000 people that all want to use that gun because that gun's great, let's say, and so everyone's buying skins, and you almost create a pump and dump, an artificial pump and dump in a sense. Do you think that could be a concern?
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, I think, like, the way that we would have to go is it can't be, like, pay to win. Like, if we want, like, a true, fun, competitive game that, like, everyone wants to interact with, we can't do that. Like, it would just have to be, like, let's just grab Valorant, for example, if you guys have played it at all, right? Like, obviously you have all of the guns in the game. Everyone's on equal footing. There's no like pay to win aspect. But if you want to go to the shop and you want to go ahead and get like this awesome Prime Vandal that makes your gun look 10 times cooler, you can do that and you can flex to all your friends. And like, it's a true flex because like everyone wants that skin. But like, it's not a necessity because like, if someone has like a regular Vandal versus a Prime Vandal, there's no competitive advantage, right? And I think that's the way that we have to go with play to earn gaming if we want to adopt it on a massive scale. But if we want like a small little game that people don't really care about and it's not adopted in a massive scale, like you can do that. But like it's just not really going to do well because, like you said, it definitely will just be like a pump and dump because people will just put a lot of money in. Like if you look at what happened with the latest Diablo game, I think that's a prime example, right? So.
Let me build on that. So one thing that people don't understand is that we don't need NFT gaming, right? If anything, it's the cherry on top. So the fact that it's going to be an NFT economy, you know, with real digital ownership, or maybe even a cryptocurrency ERC20 token, that's the cherry on top, right? That's going to be a selling point of the game. That's going to be one of the reasons someone will play the game. I don't think that someone's going to want to play a crypto game unless that's something that interests them. Maybe some real world money or real world sacrifice is going to go into play. So when I buy a Valorant skin, I don't expect anything back. But, you know, if I'm going to buy, let's say, we talked about Gala Games. If I'm going to buy a Homestead and Mirandus for like $3,000, I think I'm going to be expect to at least do something with it to sell on a marketplace or sell to other players and stuff like that. So I think it's all about the expectations when you come in, and we really don't need the NFTs or the tokens. But if we can pull it off, it's going to be amazing.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's definitely an interesting point of like, people are so used to buying your $10, $20, $30 skins that they don't expect something out of that necessarily because they can stomach that since they are accustomed to it. But when you get to a $1,000 or $3,000 NFT, people expect to get something back because that's such an absurd amount of money for the vast majority of people. And that's definitely an interesting point of the expectations. And to that point, should there be maybe some kind of focus on keeping NFT prices a lot more affordable and accessible to people to help avoid the unrealistic expectations? What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, let me take that. So I think that the company should be able to charge whatever they want, right? It's their product. If I'm going to make a luxury NFT, it's going to be extremely rare in game, or it's going to have some utility that no other NFT is going to have. I'm going to charge a high ticket price. If it's going to be a piece of bread that I'm going to consume and it's going to burn, and I'm going to need like 50 more of them in the next hour that I'm playing, then yeah, charge me 1 cent or less for that. But I think it all comes down to what is the product, and is it actually needed for gameplay, or is it just a cosmetic? Because people have no problem spending money on cosmetics, especially the knives in Valorant. They're like $50. So right. I think it all comes down to what are you actually gaining from it, and how rare is it too?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, I think people will be willing to spend a lot of, like, there will always be someone who's willing to spend absurd amounts. So I think like it's okay to have options like that. Like, you know, the Valorant example is awesome with like, you know, knife skins, or like even CS:GO with like super rare knives. They're like thousands of dollars, you know? So like, that's cool. People will want to buy that, but I don't think that should be like the focus, because if that's ever like the focus, and you know everyone's like, oh, ROI, I need to get this plot of land to get ROI, and it's going to cost me like $20,000. I think that becomes very unhealthy very quickly. But I think it's fine to have it as an option. There's always going to be a market for it. Like that one guy in Diablo as well, he spent like multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars on the game, just because he wanted to, like, I don't know, get the end game way faster than everyone else, right? So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting point. I guess along that line then, or in your personal opinions, I guess, do you think games should focus more on NFTs that actually have utility and do something? Because we talked a little bit about the potential issue for a lot of pay-to-win situations to happen. Should we have stuff like that where you get power-ups, or you get special weapons, or some small stat bonuses, that kind of stuff? Or should they really focus on more of the cosmetic looks, like we were saying, the things that people are more accustomed to, where it's changing your gun skin, that kind of stuff? Do you think, and maybe it's mass adoption versus high ticket items, or how do you guys view those two things, I guess?
Yeah, good question.
Both. Yeah, I think they need both. Like, you want to sell your skins, right? You don't really need a utility for a skin. Yeah, you can maybe increase damage, or you can do something cool with it, but that's kind of like free money for the developers, right? Skins don't really do anything except for look cool for the most part. But if you're going to actually make an NFT that has utility, that's something that has to be developed. It has to be built upon. And NFTs don't go away, right? Unless you burn them. So it's going to be kind of a long-lasting product. And I think that's something that games need to think about before they release an NFT. I think a good model, if you're going to release a gaming NFT, is, let's say you charge $100. Make sure your NFT gives people $100 worth of free things. For example, if I buy a $30 NFT, I'm going to put my game on the Epic Game Store for $30, but if you're an NFT holder, you can play for free. That's just an example of something. Or I'll get $30 worth of in-game skins for free that only NFT holders can have. Something like that.
Right. Yeah, those are excellent points. And I think someone who's done this already incredibly well is Gary Vaynerchuk. Like his V Friends, NFTs, and he has like these passes as well where he has like the VCon and all this stuff. Like his NFTs relative to other collections have held their value exceptionally well compared to other people, right? While like most NFT collections, especially at times like this, have gone down anywhere from like 50 to 70%, his have maintained their value during this time because like they actually do provide something. And I think that's definitely the key. Like I imagine like if we can actually create a blockchain game that's AAA quality, like you can literally just get like some kind of NFT pass or something like that you can go to like esports events with or some cool stuff like that. I think that would be really cool. Or just things around that nature, like battle passes. You can get NFTs for battle passes and get rewards throughout the entire season, things like that, right? And I think that's where like the value will really be. I don't think NFT should ever give a competitive advantage if we really want like a hyper successful game. I think that will destroy the game. And like I think traditional Web 2 gamers, if it's like a competitive game, they're not gonna go ahead and join into that because if we just look at like kind of like how people have reacted previously to pay to win in Web 2, they don't want it. So I don't think we should try to introduce that in Web 3. I don't think that would be healthy for the ecosystem and it wouldn't attract people, I think.
I like what you said about AAA games, like them needing to have an NFT. But I want to actually, it made me think of something, is that if you're an indie game, or an indie game studio, excuse me, you're going to be able to develop different games, right? You're not going to go all in on one game. So maybe your studio could drop an NFT that's about your first game, but you can airdrop to your second game and to your third game. Or your development studio drops an NFT and it gives you access to all future games in the studio. So, I mean, just because it's AAA or indie game, it has no difference. There can be uses for NFTs in gaming.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's an excellent idea as well. I'd love to see how that. I think like Gala Games is almost already doing something like that with their like Gala Gold Pass, which is really cool to see. Because they have so many developers on their ecosystem, right? So yeah, I think that's an awesome idea, and it's gonna do incredibly well. I think also Miria is gonna be another example of like something like that, where there's gonna be so many games on their ecosystem, and they should definitely introduce something like that. Because yeah, I mean, a lot of people would buy it for sure.
Yeah,
it's definitely an interesting idea, like a premium pass that gets you access to all the future games. I mean, I don't know, how much would you guys think would be reasonable for something like that? Because obviously, it's an interesting concept. Like, let's say you got access to all future Call of Duties. Like, that's a big thing because every year there's a Call of Duty. It's a $60, $70 game. Like, if you really like a Call of Duty, I could see people paying $500 to have access to that. And maybe there's some other perks, like you were saying, Nash, of maybe you get some other stuff that goes along with it that's value that's being traded. Yeah. So you're paying $500. Yeah, early access, a lot of different stuff like that. I mean, do you think that could be something that helps get more adoption to the NFT space of, instead of all this difficulty trying to figure out all these different games, is you could buy a pass to get access to all these different games and try them all out? Do you think that's maybe a concept that could help bring people in? I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I definitely do. And not only that, is the companies can realistically put 100% royalty on this product. They can. I'm not going to be mad if they take my royalty, right? I'm buying a membership to your game, which is going to give me early access to things. If I'm not going to use it, I'll go ahead and get rid of it. Maybe you can have 50% so that I'll get some money from selling it or whatever. I'll be incentivized to sell it to someone who wants it more. But I really don't need any money from this product once I initially buy it. So as long as they're rewarding me, I'm pretty much going to keep the NFT.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think it definitely has a lot of potential, and I think more importantly, it would kind of just show, because a large part of Web 2 right now, they just don't really understand NFTs. Like they just have a lot of like questions, and they just don't really trust the whole idea. They don't think it's necessary. That's like a big thing that I see a lot of, is like they just don't think NFTs and crypto is necessary for gaming. It doesn't make sense to them. They think it's a giant cash grab. So if they could see like a lot of utility provided by these NFTs, then I think that it would probably change their mind a bit. They just need to really see an awesome game in action, and I think it would open up a lot of eyes.
Yeah, you know what they can do actually that I just thought of is every year I see for the new COD pre-order. They say, yeah, pre-order now, you're gonna get this. Instead of pre-ordering, just mint an NFT off our website for $20. Same thing, and then you're going to start introducing people to NFTs, right? Are they going to do that? Maybe not, or at least maybe not now. But I think that is going to be like a huge onboarding. Pre-ordering is going to be huge.
Yeah, for sure.
Pre-order, get some free NFT skins along with the bundle, that kind of a deal. That could be an interesting play too. Yeah, you said something interesting too, Nash. I want to explore a little bit more is royalties. Obviously, there's kind of it seems like there's somewhat of a standard floating around at 10%, 5 to 10% maybe for royalties. But you were saying something that I thought was kind of interesting of 100% or 50% royalties. When do you think companies should go extreme royalties, and when do you think they should go lower royalties of 5%? 50% versus 5%. When do those fit in?
Yeah. So I think I actually misspoke. 100% is you just hold it forever. So that's not the best idea. But if you were to do, let's say, 50 to 90%, then that basically incentivizes the person to hold and use your product, right? But if I decide I'm never going to play Call of Duty again, maybe I had kids or I'm done playing video games, whatever, I'm just going to sell it and I'll get a little money and you'll take most of it. And I don't see what's wrong with that, right? I bought your NFT because I want early access to your game. I want the exclusive skins. Maybe I want to play 1 or 2 days before the actual release of the game. If I don't want to do that anymore, let me sell my thing to someone who wants it more than me. So I don't have any problem with putting on fat royalties for something that's going to be long lasting, and it's going to be like a studio NFT for multiple games ahead of time. When it comes to, let's say, a skin or maybe a power up or a consumable item, something that's transacted a lot throughout the economy, put a lower royalty on it, because that's not something as significant as something that's going to be kind of passed down through generations of the game. And I'm not going to pay that much royalty on my product.
Gotcha. I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I personally believe, like, if you're doing 50% royalties from the consumer's perspective, they're always going to think that that's very greedy, right? Like, if you look, like, for example, if you're launching like a big pass, like we were talking about, and they see a 50% royalty slapped onto it, personally, as like a consumer, I'm going to think first thing is like, okay, is this product like really bad? Do they want to incentivize me not to sell it? Because like when I do get it, I'm going to be very disappointed. Like that's going to be like the first spot that I go personally. Like why would they not just do a 5% royalty instead of a 50% royalty? Because if it is a really amazing product, you're going to hold on to it regardless, I believe, personally. Like why not? And if it is selling and it's trading a lot, I think that's also a good thing for the brand, right? Whoever is marketing that pass, right? So what would be the incentive for the consumer from the consumer's perspective and your point of view? 5% versus 50%.
Yeah. So I think you're right. A lot of people aren't going to like a 50% royalty, but if you can manage your expectations before they buy it and basically say, hey, this is kind of like our gala gold to you. This is going to get you early access to all of our stuff. And it's not intended for you to sell it, but if you do want to, you're going to get half the money back. I think you need to manage your consumer expectations ahead of time, and it may be looked at as greedy, but if the product is really desirable and someone's definitely going to want it and they're going to want to hold on to it for a long term, then I think people are going to buy and sell no matter what.
I see. Even if they had, like, for example, because like I can see this like competition wise, right? You have two different games, right? One game is launching their pass 5% royalty. Other game is launching their pass 50% royalty. Both games and their ecosystems, let's just say, are equally as good in the situation, right? Except for the only difference is their royalty, right? I'm 100% every single time going to choose the 5% over the 50%. Every single time as a consumer, because I know that's better for me. Because like 5 years down the road, I'm not playing any of their games anymore. Okay, cool. I can give it to someone else, trade it, make 95% of my money back. That's awesome, right? As opposed to the other one where it's like 50%. I don't know, right? I think like from a competition standpoint, those guys would just get absolutely smoked by someone with the same product.
Well, the thing is with video games, there's never the same product, right? If I go to the store and it's the same exact bar of soap, one's $1 and one's $10, of course I'm going to buy the $1 one. But if I'm going to play a premium game from Microsoft or Bungie or wherever, and I have to pay that royalty, I think I'm going to do it. And I would like to put some money on it that if Call of Duty released an NFT with a 50% royalty, it would be sold out in 2 minutes.
I disagree once again, because you look at Zuckerberg, Metaverse, that he's creating, he's putting 50% royalties on it. He got roasted for that. People tore him a new asshole for wanting to go ahead and do that, right? So I do not think that's the case at all. I very strongly believe that consumers will actually make the market, right? So if someone does go ahead and does that, like, okay, sure, you're putting a 50% royalty on there, but now you got to deal with all the backlash that you get from the consumer, right? And we saw that already with the metaverse, and I think that we're going to see that a lot more with really high royalties. Personally, I don't think there's any reason to do it. I think like it just does come across very greedy, and it's not necessarily necessary. I don't see any benefit to having a 50% royalty. Even if you have an amazing product, it just kind of looks like you're trying to capitalize on the market, in my point of view. Because like even with like CS:GO skins, for example, like sure you can go ahead and spend like all this money on a skin, but you always have the option to trade that, right? It's never like you have to hold on to it and you lose like 80% of the value of the skin or 50% of the value of the skin if you do go ahead and trade it after the fact. So that's always an option, right? So I don't know. Maybe that's just an area where I disagree, but yeah.
I think skins are definitely different, right? Skins, you need a low royalty. They're going to be something that's transacted, like more liquid than, let's say, an exclusive pass where there's like 1,000 or 2,000 of them. But I think if the product is good enough and it's well known enough, people may have a problem paying it, but they definitely will. And maybe 50% is extreme. I think 20% would be a lot more fair, but still on the higher side. But
Right.
If it's a very limited product and people want it, I don't think they'll have necessarily a big problem. Maybe our tight-knit NFT community right now, because we're so used to kind of like the 5% specialty with royalties.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's Mark Zuckerberg, right? He's going to get roasted no matter what he does. And I think he was putting like the royalty on clothes and like your house in the metaverse and stuff like that. This is going to be a premium product that's going to give you special access to things. If it's a skin or if it's a consumable item, yeah, I'm not paying that much of a royalty on it. So I do agree with you there.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just think that the consumer will always they'll kind of shy away from that personally. I just don't. I guess like my issue is I just don't see the benefit. Even with the pass, like what would be the benefit of having the extra royalty for the consumer? Because I think we always have to focus on the consumer because that's who's going to be driving the market, right? That's what I don't quite understand. Yeah.
Could a benefit potentially be, maybe it's not a 50%, maybe it's a 20%, but
Right.
maybe at that threshold, you basically avoiding flippers in a sense, right? Like on an extreme, if you get 0% royalties, if it's get a consistent price, your skin's trading a lot, you have high volume, you have a pretty consistent price drops 5%, I could buy it and flip it, make 5% really easy. But if you have a 20% royalty, now it's very unlikely for you to really have a flipper scenario where people are going to come in, see a small opportunity to flip, and be able to do that. And so the item's going to go more directly into the hands of the consumer, and the consumer is going to get it at a slightly discounted price instead of the flipper, which will then mark it up going back to the consumer. So that could potentially be a benefit in a sense.
Even then, I think like flipping is honestly like that's just like the epitome of like a consumer run market, right? Like because consumers are going ahead and they're deciding the value of what it is, and they're going ahead and actively selling it at the price that they think it's worth, right? So I think like if you look at VFriends, for example, and those collections, like that's why they've retained their value so well, is because they have a lot of utility, right? And they don't have insane royalties there. So yeah, I think that like in all reality, I do very strongly believe that like lower royalties and just flipping, like constant flipping, constant trading is the best possible thing for the consumer as opposed to not trading a lot. Because in the end of the day, like I mean, 50% losing that on every single trade, if you ever do want to trade, it's like that's massive, right? Even 20% I think is pretty sizable. I do believe that we should have the ability to go ahead and trade whenever we want, just like when we buy any real life item as well. But like that again, I guess like for like tickets and stuff like that, you could resell them, right? You could buy them really early and resell them for a higher price, and you're not gonna have a royalty on it. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like I guess there are multiple ways to look at it. Yeah.
I mean, I've had 100% royalty on every in-game item and video game that I bought my entire life until the last year or two.
Right, but
I do understand what you're
is for,
saying.
right?
Yeah, I do understand
for.
what you're saying. People might not, they'll see that high 20% number or whatever the number is, and they'll say, hey, that's a lot. I do agree with that. And I think once a collection comes out with that, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I think it could definitely be a solution to either slowing down flippers and, most importantly, getting your product in the hands of the people that are going to use it. I mean, who knows? Maybe just content creators are going to want to buy it. They're probably not going to sell it. They'll get early access, stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to see what would happen.
For sure. Yeah. I don't know. I think like, yeah, there's so many different ways of looking at it. I think overall though, the way that I see it is I think if we're running the market as a consumer as opposed to like, some corporate brand, we're killing it, right? And I think that's what Web3 is all about. Personally, I think that just putting the control back in our hands, being able to really own our assets. That's what I really like about it. And if we don't want to have that asset anymore, we can sell it to someone who wants it. And I think that freedom is what makes this unique. And we need to keep that identity somehow.
Yeah. I think Nash brought up an interesting point though of like the Web 2 gamers are used to literally 100% royalty. Like you don't get anything back unless maybe you're doing like a Steam marketplace where you could resell some stuff, but a lot of games you can't go resell. And so there's a lot of standard of that extreme cost that you're going to pay. It's just a sunk cost. It's gone. So I'm wondering, what do you guys think as far as a percentage? Do you think it's going to be 25%, 10%, 50% of gamers from Web 2 that are going to come in and go, hey, I got to keep 50% of my value. That's way better than before. How many people do you think are going to have that mindset versus the people who are going to see 50% and still think that's an issue?
I think if I came in and if I could own 95% of my asset, I'll be super happy. I mean, I could already know, like I already spent so much money on skins, like I said before, like on League of Legends, on Valorant, all these other things, right? So like, if I could buy a skin or something else and I could own like the vast majority of it and I could sell it back at any time if I'm not playing that game anymore and someone else wants to buy it, that'd be cool. And I think overall the brand would profit a lot more too. So I think it's like win-win-win for everyone, honestly. Especially like with royalties in mind, like just open marketplace like that. I think that'd be awesome. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Nash?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it depends who you're talking to, right? If you're talking to us NFT guys, when we hear 20%, we're like, wow, that's absolutely ridiculous. 20% royalty. But if I were to talk to my friends who play Valorant and League of Legends, and I said, hey, you're going to get 80% of the skin back. You can sell it, buy more skins, or just cash out your money. They'd go, no way, I can get 80% back? That's crazy. So it really depends on who you're talking to. And I can definitely see why the Web3 ethos would want like a single digit royalty, like 5%, something like that. But I think it's much better, no matter what the royalty is. Let's say it's even like 40%, 50%. I think it's better than where we are now with Web 2. And I think that NFTs can solve the problem of getting like money from consumers back into their own hands instead of just going straight to the developers and then it's completely out of the ecosystem.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good take. Okay, switching gears a little bit here. When it comes to the different types or different ways that NFTs could be distributed, there's special limited time runs, there's limited quantity, there's unlimited access potential where you can just print as many as you want. How do games really balance those different aspects between the unlimited, limited, those kind of options? Do you think that there maybe should be a priority focus on one of the above? Do you think it should just kind of be up to whatever? How do we hold value? Let's kind of explore some of those ideas when it comes to the different ways NFTs can be distributed. And I'd like to say, just to start it off, for me personally, I played a lot of Rust back in the day. And the way Rust handled it was every week there was a set of 5 to 10 skins that they'd distribute. And it was unlimited quantity, but it was only during that week. So however many people bought during that week, that was the total potential number. And then the next week, they went to a new set of skins. And so what would happen is you'd have some weeks where people really didn't like the skin. They didn't buy it because they thought, oh, this isn't as cool. I like some of the other ones. I'm not going to buy it. So you got really limited quantities bought. And then next week comes around, people realize, oh, shoot, there's 500 of these skins. Now it's limited quantity. Now there's suddenly more demand because of that factor.
Right.
And so that's something I find really interesting of you could do special limited time ones. Maybe it's every week there's a rotation. Maybe it's every month. There's different ways you could handle it. But I think that's a really interesting idea of you do limited time, unlimited quantity, and then it's up to people to determine how much they want. And then in the future, if people decide, actually, that Christmas skin from 2 years ago, that was really sweet. I want that, but there was only 2,000 of them. Now there's higher demand for it. I think that's really an interesting model where it gives a lot more freedom to the people instead of a limited 10,000 set NFT, something like that. But what do you guys think is maybe a better way or a balanced way to approach that?
That's a good question. I think honestly, it will depend on the game. If I look at like Counter-Strike, for example, I think like that like kind of crate system would be very fitting for similar type of games in like AAA, right? Or AAA blockchain games. Like if we had like just a similar strategic shooter like CSGO, for example, I think it would be very fitting to have, crates with like different rarity items that are harder to achieve and you have to open the crates and interact with them that way. And then like for a game like League of Legends, for example, if we had like some kind of MOBA, I mean, I think having some like limited quantity drop would make more sense as well, so that there's still value to the actual NFTs in some sense. Or you could do like the shop rotation, like what you're talking about, to create that scarcity as well. Maybe both, apply both, limited quantity and a shop rotation, so that people even feel more FOMO every single time that they see that shop rotation. Because I think, yeah, I mean, when I look at like Valorant, for example, like, oh my God, you only have like 5 skins in the shop at once, and it rotates like every day, every 24 hours. And like, I'm looking at that shop every single day, waiting for the skin that I want to have. And it creates excitement and like actually wanting to come back to that ecosystem. So, yeah, I think that's a really cool system, and it has a lot of potential. And I could see it being used really well in Web3 with different examples, but I don't think it's one size fits all. I think that we can apply them all in different ways, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think depending on the game, there's a lot of different ways you can do things. I like the Valorant model, but at the same time, if I want a skin, I don't mind. If I really want a skin, I'm going to pay more for it, right? I don't want to have to wait till it pulls up in my shop. So I think that they do kind of create like a sense of urgency. When the skin's in the market, you got to buy it, right? Or else it's gone. So yeah. I think that is a good model, but I do actually like the loot box model, as in it's basically random, right? Whatever you get is random. And, you know, the rare stuff has a lower % chance and it sells for more, right? But the thing is, a lot of loot box systems don't have that secondary marketplace. So right. I can't really sell my stuff. That's why CSGO was like a revolutionary kind of distribution method for skins. Because not only do they have that randomization, but they had a marketplace where you can sell them. A lot of games have either one or the other. They have a marketplace where you can sell, or they have loot boxes where you randomly get things. So I think if you mix the two, you can definitely charge premium on the rare products and then just put a royalty on that, right? And we were talking about if it's a skin or if it's an item that's not like super important for gameplay, yeah, just tag on a little 5, 6, 4% royalty, something like that. And I think that's a great distribution model.
Absolutely, yeah. You'd have both. You'd have that scarcity, and then you could also trade, and they'd have that inherent value from the scarcity of how hard they are to achieve and get, right? So, yeah, I think that'd be an awesome model for Web3 too. If it's not broken, don't fix it. I think for like strategic shooters, that'd be a perfect model for sure.
Yeah, like there's a reason people still talk about CSGO's like skin marketplace, and there's a reason why some of the skins are still so expensive. And it's crazy how no one's kind of copied it yet. I'm sure they will soon though.
Yeah, in Web3, we have like a couple, like there's this one game on Wax that has copied it. It's just like the game's not, it's called Forge, like Forge Arena. So they have like a loot box system. The only issue is that like the game itself isn't as fun, anywhere near as fun. So that's like the actual problem. So but yeah, like some people they're definitely doing it where the pieces are moving. It's just, yeah, we got to get the good game first.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think loot box is definitely an interesting way to approach it, because it's been proven in the past, obviously, as a more sustainable way to do it, where people will spend, you know, in CSGO, you bought your box, you bought your key, you're going to spend whatever it is, $3, $4 to open your box, and your probably average expected value out of that's $2. But you might get a 30-cent skin, you might get a $500 knife. Like there's extreme ends, and people are willing to take that gamble and take that risk where they know the average expected value is going to be less than what they're putting in. And I think that's an interesting way to make it more sustainable. And another game that's doing that would be Million on Mars. Again, it's a city builder game. It's not as fun, kind of like what you're saying with the other game, CryptoKing, but it has that mechanic where you have like a 45% chance of a common, and then on extreme end, a 1% chance of a legendary. And it's like, you know, if you get a common, you're going to pay $30 to open this loot box, essentially, and your common's worth 10. So you know if you get a common, you're going to lose money, but your legendary is a $500 NFT. And so people are willing to take that gamble. And I think that's maybe an interesting and more sustainable way for more NFT games to pivot, because I could see that working potentially in a substantial number of games. Really anything where you have potential for a different rarity distribution. I mean, even... Actually, a lot of games, I'm kind of struggling to think of a game that it wouldn't work in. Or you could make some tweaks, right? It might not work initially, but if you made some tweaks, you could make it work, I think.
No, I think you're actually right. The more that I think about it, too, I think like almost every single game, any competitive game, almost every single competitive game I can think about, like, I think people would interact with it. Even MOBAs, let's just say. I think people would do that for sure. And hell, it's also amazing content as well, right? Like that's how the whole CS:GO gambling thing blew up, right? The people was freaking like, oh my god! And then they would go ahead and like mix to 3 super rare skins and like try to get even a more rare skin out of it. So like, yeah, it really drives a lot of traffic in that way too. So I think it would be awesome if we could have a great game with that as well inside of it. It would attract a lot of DGens, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even not a competitive game. Like you could get an Among Us, you know, and you get your Among Us skins for your different characters, and it's a loot box where you're going to get the different rarity. And if you want the one that makes your head catch on fire or something, that's a legendary, right? You could do some fun stuff like that where it doesn't even have to be a super competitive game. It feels like it could fit in a lot of different game genres.
All right, so loot box number 1. That's what I think we'll decide here. Yeah, I agree. Actually, I think that's an amazing point.
Could you guys imagine if back when Among Us was super popular, right? We had like Disguise Toast, Pokimane, all those people playing it. Could you imagine if they had loot boxes for skins? I mean, they would have made so much money. It would have been insane. Royalty, Web3 or not, right? They would have been balling.
100%.
I mean, I'm sure they still are, but you know what I mean.
They would have been balling a lot more, I think. There would have been a lot more content, for sure. Yeah. It's a huge marketing thing for brands, you're definitely right.
Yeah, it definitely could be a lot more sustainable because I think there's a big issue with these unlimited quantity runs where it's not necessarily a item that you're burning, right? And Nash, you brought this up earlier, and maybe it's like a piece of bread that you're burning to get energy, something along that concept. That one you could have unlimited quantity. It could be 1 cent, 10 cent, whatever it is, and you're just using a ton of it. And the NFT gets burned, unlimited quantity, it makes sense. But a lot of these other games, like an Axie or some of these other ones, are going with unlimited quantity. It's never getting burned. It's always there. And your meta might change and it might not be as good, but now you have an ungodly quantity of NFTs that just aren't usable or aren't being used because you don't have the player count. I think that's definitely another potential issue is you can snowball an unlimited quantity, especially when you're talking a breeding model. I think a loot box could potentially even work there.
I agree. Yeah, I think like these hyperinflationary NFT games, I don't think they're going to do well in the future at all. I think people have it's left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, especially from the people that I've talked to. I don't think we're going to see a lot of success there anymore. And I think, we definitely have to make a large transition. Game first, loot boxes. I think those are awesome ways to kind of solve those issues, and not as much focus on tokens, but I see what you're saying there.
Yeah, the good part about loot boxes too is that it can actually kind of be a gate to the inflation. For example, if Axie Infinity had loot boxes instead of breeding, let's say you had a 2% chance to get an Axie, that way you're not going to super inflate the market as much. Maybe there's like a 50% chance you get a land item, right? I mean, I don't have land. I don't even need a land item. They have the lunar land items. I think they're like $1 on the marketplace, right? So if you use loot boxes to kind of weed out a lot of the token inflation, that could definitely be a model too. As long as people can still play your game for free, right? You want to reward them for the loot boxes and give them cool stuff that they can't just already get. Something they got to earn by either paying or playing.
Yeah, and they had different rarities for that event too. So that's a perfect example that could fit in where you have your common, rare, epic, legendary, all that different stuff. A loot box would be perfect there.
Agreed.
All right, so clearly crypto gaming's got a ways to go before it's quite ready for mass adoption. But when do you guys think mass adoption is going to be coming where we're seeing tens of millions of players in these crypto games?
That's a good question.
Not soon, in my opinion.
Same,
I don't think it's going to be 2022. We're already in August. I remember 2021. Everyone's like, next year's the year. We're going to pop off. We're going to be millionaires, right? I don't think it's coming 2022. And I think we have so much macro stuff going on, like, potential World War III, clickbait, all that stuff. A recession, all these things coming. I'm not sure 2023 will be our year, but I think somewhere between 2024 and 2027 is going to be huge as people, as kind of, we'll call them the normies, the Web 2s, they get used to Mark Zuckerberg posting meta stuff. And then they're like, okay, this metaverse thing, this Web3 thing's kind of cool. Let me check it out, right? Right now, we're just implanting the seeds in their brain. And soon we're going to brainwash them. And we're going to make them love NFTs. We're going to make them obsess. And we're going to make them all pay us and make us all rich. We're going to make them poor. But
it's
I
like
think
those
it's
guys that
coming
didn't believe in
within.
the internet. It's like those guys that didn't believe in the internet. Like, oh, the internet's never going to take over. It'll never be successful. And then when the internet companies started going down in that massive crash, you're like, I told you so. And then now you look at Amazon and Google today, right? So I think it's going to be like that for sure.
Yeah, but to answer the question seriously, I think within the next 5 years, but probably within 2 to 5 years, if I'm being realistic, the way I think it'll happen, which I want to touch on real quick, is it's going to be one game. Similar to what we saw with Axie Infinity, it showed the entire world what play to earn was, right? There was people in many countries. It was on the news, so many articles, good or bad, whatever. It was everywhere. Axie Infinity was known, at least by some people worldwide. Once we have an amazing game that people are playing for fun, they don't care about money, or maybe it's the biggest Ponzi ever and they're only playing for money and it's still surviving, that's when NFT gaming is going to be mainstream, right? It's going to come with one amazing game that people are super addicted to. There's tons of YouTube creators. There's tons of content. It's being streamed every day, just like Among Us was, and it's going to come all at once, in my opinion.
I don't think. I agree. I think that we definitely do have a ways to go. I do not think that it's going to happen anywhere in the next 12 months. I definitely think though, like, when I look at like Miria, I don't know if you guys have looked too much into Miria, but when I look into ecosystems like Miria and I look at all the games that they're building like a battle royale, they're building like basically a better version of Blanco's Block Party, and a bunch of those types of games that already have a lot of like success in Web 2. They even have like a Mario Kart style game, right? It's all like super HD, like really good graphics, actually, right? I think like things like that will be hyper successful, but those things take time, right? Those things do not happen overnight, and I think that's an expectation that needs to be set for a lot of people that currently are maybe in Web3 gaming. Is like, we're gonna have to wait. I think 2024 at the very earliest. I agree with that, if not a little bit later than that, because to like actually make like a AAA quality game that players want to interact with, like that takes years, and even after it's been created, there's no guarantee of success. There's been so many massive games that people have waited like 5, 6, 7 years for in Web 2 that completely flopped too, right?
Cyberpunk.
So, exactly, right? Cyberpunk is a prime example. So, there's no success that even like these amazing games that are being developed right now that might look amazing to us and everyone's super excited for will do well. So, we really just got to, especially with all the barriers that we currently have for Web 2 gamers, right? That's another thing to keep in mind. But I do think it will happen. It's gonna take time.
Yeah, I think those are all fair points. I think, it'll definitely be a couple years out. We were definitely optimistic last year, thinking that it was coming right around the corner for sure.
Oh yeah, I definitely thought that.
We got our reality check, and we woke up a little bit now, and I think it's definitely going to be 2024, 2025. It's going to be a ways down because, like you're saying, it's going to take a while for something to really come up. And as far as how it happens, I almost feel like it's going to be more so. It's going to probably be a single game, like what Nash was saying. And it's probably going to be a mainstream studio that decides to go hard and integrate NFTs. It's going to be something but like Ubisoft or EA or something big that's going to be able to bring the players in. I think that's what's going to have to happen, and not an indie studio, because I think indie studios are going to struggle when it comes to really marketing to those audiences and bringing them in, whereas the big studios, they already have that. And so they can integrate those Web 2 gamers, teach them about Web 3 a lot easier. And I think that's what it's going to take for mass adoption.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I honestly think it could go either way, because like if we look at like, for example, how Fortnite blew up, right? I don't think anyone knew about Epic Games really before Fortnite was there. Like no one really ever interacted with it. Like, maybe some people did. Like they did have a couple like decent games, but the game was so good at the time and it was so revolutionary at the time that like a lot of people adopted it. So if we could get a game like that in Web3, even if it's from like an indie developer that isn't necessarily part of a massive organization, I think it does have the potential, because like word of mouth advertising is so powerful, right? That is literally the most powerful type of advertising. If you can get people to talk about any of your products and like talk good things about it, that spreads so fast. And that's like what we saw with Fortnite, for example, right? Content creators just made a video on it. They're like, I've really liked playing this game. This is so refreshing, so new. And they weren't paid to do that at all. They just loved the game. And I think that's what we need. I definitely think you're right. Like a large corporation like Ubisoft will have like a better chance of that success just because of the resources they have. But, these indie companies are doing pretty good. I'm super surprised at what they're doing already. So I wouldn't knock them off entirely.
I think
That's fair.
Yeah, I think it's equal opportunity for any studio, right? I mean, was Among Us from a AAA studio?
No.
Absolutely not, right? And they absolutely blew up. I think I don't 100% know about this, but I didn't hear about Supercell until Clash of Clans back in the day. I'm not sure if they were a big studio or not. Game absolutely exploded. There's been a lot of games that have just surfaced on the indie level and then now have made like millions, some even like $1 billion, stuff like that. So I think it's just going to be one game, whether AAA, whether not. If it was a AAA game, I think it would be able to have a more sustainable economy and people might stay longer, which is super important because they need a good first experience. But I think it's just going to take one game, no matter indie, no matter AAA. It's going to blow the entire space up. Kind of like when Facebook changed their name to Meta, the Sandbox and Decentraland prices skyrocketed. Once an amazing game comes out, people are going to all flock to this game, and then they're going to disperse to other games, and they're going to really start checking out the Web3 ecosystem.
Right, and then the consumer can make the choice at that time, right? If anything, it's kind of funny how that works out, right? These large corporate brands starting to get into the ecosystem almost drives more traffic to these indie companies in a way because, yeah, like what you said, that's exactly what happened when Meta started blowing up, right? People actually started looking around and shopping around. So, yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to think about that. You guys brought up some good points I didn't consider. Like a lot of those memorable games, Among Us, Clash of Clans, those were indie studio, or maybe not indie, but studios we didn't really know the names of. And I think that's a great point of those made the come up. And maybe it's those games were just so much fun, it was hard for them not to blow up. And maybe that's it. Maybe we're waiting for those extremely fun, addictive games that are just impossible for us to ignore. And maybe that's what we need, and that's why it's going to take a while. But with it probably being a while until we're going to hit that threshold where crypto games get mass adoption, how do we handle the responsibility as influencers where people are viewing some of these things as assets, as investments, these assets as investments? How do we handle that responsibility, especially since it is so far out and we're trying to balance hey, needs to be viewed as a skin, it's a fun game, you need to view it that way, but also the reality of a lot of people have been through this past cycle that are currently here at least, and they view things still potentially as investments. How do we balance that responsibility?
That's a good question.
Take this one, CK?
Yeah, sure. That is a really good question. I think, I've definitely made this mistake because I think we can all agree, I think pretty much everyone who looked at Axie Infinity, the vast majority of people saw that as an investment opportunity, I would say, right? So I definitely made this mistake, right? Because I went to Axie Infinity, I saw how quickly it was growing at the time, and I got into it, and I had these expectations of making money, right? I'll be completely honest and transparent, and I know a lot of people, if they're being completely honest with me, they had the same kind of expectations when they got into that game, right? So I think we all kind of understand how that kind of ecosystem can devolve very quickly and turn very toxic. So I think when it comes to the games, it has to be, we have to be focusing on the game. It can't be the economy, and there can't be no weird hyperinflationary mechanics within the system that will make people focus on the economy, right? Because if we look at how Axie Infinity was set up, it was set up for people to focus on the economy, right? That's maybe that's not necessarily how the developers intended it to be, but that's just the way that the economy was, right? And I don't think we should really pay any mind to those types of things. I think we should really be focusing on the actual game itself and the skins themselves, and we should be really talking about the open market, with CSGO skins. That's how we should look at it, I think, right? We can trade this with everyone, anyone, at any time. You actually own the assets, and that's what we should be looking at. We shouldn't be oh, you can invest into this skin and it could potentially be turned into a 10,000 skin down the road. That should not be the topic of conversation at all, I don't think. I think hey, it's like a rare Yeezy drop, right? Oh, there's this limited collection right here. You can pick up one of these, and that's awesome. You own a super rare collectible. And if you're part of that drop, sure, you can go ahead and sell it for a higher price down the road if you want to, or you can hold on to it, and it has amazing utilities as well. Because the focus mainly is on the actual product itself and the game itself, not the actual the monetary aspect, I think. And I think that should just be something that's there, right? It's just a technology that helps us trade as gamers, because until the global world economy changes so much to the point where all of us humans literally do not have work to do and we have to rely on something like this for a source of income or something like that, until we're at that point, I don't think that we can rely on these. Like the focus should never be on the economy, in my point of view.
Yeah, I think as influencers, you have a job as just what CryptoKing was saying. You can't tell everyone buy this, it's going to 100x, right? We saw that with crypto. We saw that with penny stocks, right? It's all pump and dump stuff like that. We need to, and I like what Big Time did. Shout out to Big Time. I think it was called, they had spaces, right, in their game. And they said, hey, this is going to be your space. You're going to buy it and you're going to go chill there. And that's what I got from it, right? They didn't say, hey, you're going to buy this. You're going to get 30 tokens every 6 hours. You're going to be able to use your tokens on this. Your tokens are going to have real world value. No, they're like, this is what you're going to get when you pay $30 for this space. You can chill there. You're going to have customization stuff and it's going to be cool, right? I went in there not thinking that I'm going to make my money back, right? Just like I do with a regular game. So I think as influencers, as studios, and as games, we need to kind of change the narrative from buying something to make money to buying something to actually enjoy it and use in-game. And then when you're done with it, giving it to someone else.
100%. Yeah, I think just that ownership, that's the key too, right? Buying something to own it, actually have ownership over it, and just enjoy the perks that it gives you. You couldn't have said it much better.
Yeah, I think that's a great point of trying to approach it. And that's a great example too from Big Time. If they marketed it as a fun thing, not as an investment, not as you're getting your token printers, none of that nonsense that was going on there. I guess then, how would you, Nash, specifically, how would you address something? Let's say it was a different scenario where maybe the space was built and it was marketed and put out as, here's this token printer, you're going to get X tokens every day, and they went that route. How would you approach something like that where you can't necessarily, where you have to address it? Does that make sense? Like, how would you approach that?
You mean for a game that's already out?
Yeah, let's say there's a game out there, they have this NFT you could buy, and every day it's going to give you 10 tokens. And that's the pitch behind it. How are you going to bring that up and talk to your audience about that thing?
Yeah. Well, you got to have a product that makes people want to spend those tokens, right? If I'm getting 10 tokens a day and all I can buy is pocket lint with it, I don't care about the tokens. But if I get to have this exclusive skin or this exclusive experience, or just I get to do a really fun experience again, or I get faster progress, or I get some special item in game that I can consume one time, once a week with those tokens, then yeah, maybe I'm going to want it some more, right? So you need to build a product around the tokens that you're distributing before you actually like fill people's bags with it and they just sell it. So it's all about, creating the expectations of your consumer before you give them the token. And you got to make sure that you build something that they're actually going to want to use. And that's very hard.
Yeah, that is incredibly difficult. Honestly, at this point in time, if a game did that, like at the current state that we are in Web3, I would say I just wouldn't talk about it. I wouldn't even get paid any attention to mine. I wouldn't even bring it on my channel. Even if that happened next year, I wouldn't do it. Even in 2024, I don't think I would pay it any mind if we had, some kind of NFT release that's like, oh, you get 10 tokens every single day. Why don't you buy 100 of them? Roll the dice a little bit, see what people do. I'm personally, I'm not gonna talk about it at all, and I think that we're really far off from being able to make that work and not have people and whales come in, because we're in a free market, right? Whales can come in, absorb like a vast majority of what's there, wait for new capital to come in and just dump on their face. We've seen that happen so many times. I just do not want people to experience that anymore. I think that's going to be so damaging for Web3. If anything, I'm going to talk shit about that game if they do that. So I think we should really discourage it personally, just because I've seen it go sour. Almost every single time I've seen something like that, I've seen it go sour, honestly. So
every time for me, yeah. I remember at Thaden Arena, I was telling people, hey, you might want to wait a few weeks before you buy these NFTs because they're just making more NFTs, right? And then people got super mad at me. They were saying I'm fudder. They're saying, calling me bad names. Got a lot of bad DMs too. And then what happened? We can tell when an ecosystem is stronger than another one. And that's what I was going back to what I said in the beginning of this, is that you need to have your token, if you're going to have one, and as a core gameplay mechanic of your game. You need to have a use for it before you disperse it to everyone in the entire ecosystem.
100%. Yeah. And I just don't think that's the way. I think like the buy NFTs get rewards. I don't think that's the way. I think we got to find a way that works better. What do you guys think would work? Like, what would be like an ideal situation for tokenomics within a game? What would be the purpose for the token? How would it be used? What type of mechanics would be behind it? I'm really curious. Like, how would be the main like reward structure for the token? What would be an ideal way to actually get tokens in a play to earn game?
Yeah. You know what I like, and I don't know if this would work, honestly, because it's never been tried, so I can't, speak. But what I think could work is something similar to Clash of Clans. For example, you have gold and you have elixir. Those are completely free, right?
Okay.
But now you have this third one, gems. And what you do with gems is you can buy them and you can speed up your process. And usually what happens is like they sell you just enough gems to where you end with like 99 and you need 100 to get to like the next upgrade or whatever. And I think it would be cool if, you buy some gems, you speed up your progress, and then that's it, right? But when you're playing the game, sometimes when you clear off like trees in your base or stuff like that, you get free gems. So you need a way to be able to get it without completely inflating up your economy. A lot of the problems with like Axie and Thedan Arena is that the only time, like you can get so many of the gems, but the only thing the gems were used for is making more gems. Right. You need to make sure that when you get gems in your economy, it's very rare and it's something special to where someone might actually even want to buy it instead of working to get it.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point for sure. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of room for that. I'm almost thinking, I had this idea, is like, what if we, instead of making like hyper-inflationary economies, why don't we go the opposite way and make hyper-deflationary economies? What would be the downside to that? Like having a tax on all transactions in a sense, where like the currency over time, essentially it can only really go up. Like it's not really going to mint into oblivion like SLP did, for example.
Yeah, the problem with that is, are you talking about we start with like 1 billion tokens and then we can only burn, like there's no way of getting more?
Exactly, yeah. There's no way of minting more.
The problem with that is distribution, right? So let's say the tokens vest over 5 years. Yeah. And your game only starts getting traction on year 4. You're going to have a bunch, there's probably only like 500 to 2,000 people playing it. And those people are going to be filthy rich, just ready to dump at any time. So enough, yeah. That you'd have to have some type of like way to introduce your tokens to the actual players instead of just the whales like dumping on everyone. And I think that would be super challenging and hard to like, let's say your game is going on year 7 and there's like 2,000 tokens left in the economy.
Right. Yeah. Just completely died. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, maybe there's like an unlock schedule and deflationary aspects at the same time. Like there's like a way to unlock the tokens and then also deflate at the same time. Could that possibly work?
I definitely think that could work, right? It would be as if Axie, it was as if you had to pay like 5 SLP for the chance to win like 9. Right? So it's constantly burning, but like you still are buying some just to play and stuff like that instead of just breeding Axies to make more and more. Right? If you can find a way to burn your tokens at the same rate or at a higher rate than you're making them, then you're golden. The problem is 90% of people are just instantly going to sell. They're not going to burn. So that's when the gameplay comes in. But I don't think there's been a proven model that's worked yet. So obviously everything we're talking about is speculation. And I'm super excited to see a model work. I'm excited for the game Mirandus to come out. That's like the one I'm most excited for. I think they might have something there.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think like that's where a big role of like community, like DAO based governance can come in too as well. Like the players can kind of just decide what they want to do with the economy. Like we could have like a voting pool or station and you could say, okay, whales will have the advantage in the voting or whatever. Right. But I don't know. I think that'd be a really interesting way to go forward with economies that maybe in the future could have some kind of play to earn mechanic within them. Just kind of like what the United States Federal Reserve does, right? Like they print money, they take money back into the, like we can
the biggest Ponzi, the biggest Ponzi of all time.
Literally, right? They do QT, which is quantitative tightening. They raise interest rates, they suck that money back in, right? And then they also start printing when they feel like it's necessary. I think it would be kind of cool to have something like that, but in gaming, like kind of maybe like a RuneScape open world economy with like a huge exchange. I think like Mirandus could definitely do something like that. I think that'd be really interesting. But yeah, that's speculation once again. Super far away, and we have no way of really knowing if it would work. But
I don't like the idea of a DAO deciding things on the economy. I think the DAO will only vote in their own interest, which is going to be to vote on whatever they could do to increase the price of the token. That's going to be the number one concern. And honestly, now that I'm like learning a lot more about building a game, is that the normal person has absolutely no idea what really goes into the economy and what really goes into the game development. So I don't think it's in the best interest of a project to have the DAO vote on their basically steps with the economy. What I think a DAO should vote for is maybe what the next feature we implement to burn the tokens, not how fast or at what rate they should be burned, because I think they're just going to try to inflate all prices.
I see.
I think a DAO could work, but it has to be very specific as to what they have the power to vote on and control.
Yeah, I think there'd have to be like a real good balance between developers and DAO, because we've seen, developers get real greedy too, right? With, the way that they set up their game, for example, where they profited immensely while the player base got absolutely shit on. And then, so like, yeah, exactly. And there's so many examples, right? So like, it's so hard. It's like such a hard balance. I think like a DAO is necessary, but yeah, you definitely have to limit it, because you don't want large whales coming in and completely manipulating everything in the DAO. Because if you're having a voting structure based off of the amount of tokens that you hold, in some sense, obviously you'd have to set parameters around that. And then if you have validators set up and they have extra voting power and sway, like that's a big thing. And then content creators influencing everything as well. Like it's a super, super tough balance. But overall, I mean, I honestly think that'd be better than the developers just rugging you. Honestly, like you have a little bit of say at least, right? So
at least you can like rug the other people, right?
I mean, no, I wouldn't say that, but I think like people would know what they're getting into at the very least, right? If like it's community run, you can see the governance proposals, what's going on in the ecosystem, and it's all transparent, it's all there. I think people would know what they're getting into at least. And sure, there's going to be bad actors trying to drag people in for like exit liquidity and that kind of stuff. But, that happens everywhere in the world, right? We can't stop that. That happens in the stock market. That happens, So, it's tough to balance. But, yeah, I think there's potential for sure. And we got to find some kind of balance there because, we can't have people getting rugged anymore. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah, I understand why these developers have so many issues doing this, right? Because there's so many factors to, put in there.
Yeah, I mean, you could have, instead of reinventing the wheel, right? You could have the DAO essentially replace a board of directors, in a traditional company sense. So you have your developers that do the day-to-day operations. They can see all the data. They can have those deep insights, like what Nash was saying. But then you have the DAO that oversees that and goes, every quarter, maybe it is, or maybe it's every month. Who knows how often it is. The DAO then goes, here's what we want this next quarter. We want these big picture features, and then it's up to the developers to figure out what are the specific numbers, percentages. They figure out all those details because they're dealing with the day-to-day operations. And so your DAO is really there to hold your developers accountable, make sure progress is being made, and worst case scenario, you get rid of the developers and you replace them with another developer studio, you get rid of a specific person, whatever it is, but they're there at the end of the day to hold the developers accountable and make sure that things are done and progress is being made and it's going how, generally speaking, the big picture is going how people want it to go.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. And I think a lot of companies in the future could also operate this way as well. I think we can all say that there's always, like, for example, in the Web3 space, we've all had that one developer that we don't think is doing the best thing for the community, right? No matter what game it is, right? And if we had some kind of government proposal, we could whitelist and say, like, hey, I don't think this developer has the interest of the community in mind. Let's have some kind of vote on this to see if we want to keep this guy or replace him with someone with equal, experience that would do the community good, right?
But oftentimes that developer can be irreplaceable. Like, there's a lot of teams where if you remove one or two developers, the project is like months and months behind, right? It's not easy to make a game, and especially a popular one, and a popular enough game to where people want to vote and care enough to do that and put their time and make proposals, everything like that. Right. I think it's a lot easier to say, like, yeah, let's just get rid of them. But like, if we were to get rid of like Trung or Psych Out or Jiho, I mean, Axie would be set back like a year. Yeah. It would be catastrophic if we got rid of just one of them.
I mean, it's already been catastrophic for them, right? Like, I mean, what they went through. So, I honestly, I don't know. I think like if I look back and I think like let's look at Axie Infinity. Let's just give that as an example. You guys don't need to comment on this if you don't want to. That's totally cool if you guys like don't feel comfortable or whatever. But if I look back and I see like during like the peak days of Axie Infinity, if I personally believe if we did not have Psycho out there, I feel like the company would have been so much better off. Now, I don't know behind the scenes exactly what Psycho does, but I definitely know that he's not irreplaceable. I definitely know that for a fact. I know people would have like very similar skill sets, and he might know more about Axie Infinity than like, you know, certain people, but there are very smart people out there that could come into that ecosystem and do what he was doing and be better at PR than he was at the same time, right? And I think overall Axie Infinity would have done better. Sure, it probably still would have done poorly, but I think people would have been a lot less salty because I can't even name on two hands how many people I know that like just hate his guts, basically, right? So yeah, I don't know. That's my point of view.
I personally don't think they could have got rid of him. I feel like there's so much that he was doing behind the scenes that we have no idea even like existed. And I could be wrong, right? Who knows? Right. But I feel like he was kind of irreplaceable at the time. Do I like the way he handled everything? Obviously not. Do I think it could have been handled differently? Of course, but I mean hindsight, right?
Yeah,
they were a small team. They didn't know it was going to blow up that much that quick. So, I mean, yeah, it sucks, but whatever, you know? Like, I really don't think they could have got rid of him and had the same events play out.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I guess we'll never really know for sure, right? It's just the way that it is, yeah.
Yeah, I think that could have been like a middle ground between those two ideas, where you could have got rid of him, but it would have set them back. I think he could have been replaced, but he had knowledge. He was doing a lot of work that needed to be done behind the scenes that would have needed somebody to replace him. That would have been quality and all that. And so, yeah, it definitely would have changed the course of time and how things went down. But I think I would agree at the end of the day, it would have been better because I just saw him do so much stupid shit. Just like
from like a PR perspective, like take the computer away from this guy.
Yeah,
you know?
take his Twitter away. Like, come on. Like, there's just so much stupid stuff he was saying. It was just like face palming every day. It was brutal. And so there's some of that kind of stuff that I think would have helped a lot if they didn't have that going on. But also, like you said, Nash, he did a lot of stuff behind the scenes that I'm sure was very, very important. And so there's definitely a balance. And maybe that would have been a perfect situation for the DAO to decide, is it worth the couple months setback to get rid of this person? And that would have been up to the community to decide.
They all would have said yes, bro. They all would have said get rid of him. So that's what I'm saying. They don't know what's really going on, right? Maybe if we saw that long list, like a long ass receipt that rolls out of things that he was doing and he was staying up like late and doing all this stuff, maybe would have changed our minds. But I guarantee you it would have been like 95% yes.
People would have said, yeah.
That's why I don't necessarily trust the DAO to vote on really, really important things. I think they should vote on features, but I don't know about that personally.
Yeah, that's fair. That is an important point to make too, right? It's like, like the average person doesn't necessarily understand all the nuances of what comes into running an organization and coding and developing and all that kind of stuff, right? Like that is not something that the average person will really understand. I mean, I sure as hell don't know what Psycho was doing. I just know that, like, I personally just don't think he was good for the organization from a PR perspective. And that PR is, in the grand scheme of things, it's obviously very substantial, but at the same time, I don't know what he was doing behind that, right? So, yeah, that's just one of those things where I guess we'll never really know, because I don't think Axie Infinity is really making a comeback, boys. I'm sorry.
It's going to be tough, but it's possible.
It's possible.
Aesop's, can we talk about Ronin Network real quick?
Yeah, sure. What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about what you guys think about the future of the Ronin Network, and also what you think about the games that have come out on the network. Because I feel like I have all this RON, and I have really no idea what it's going to do besides be a gas token. I'm not sure if they dropped new documentation on it or not, but if they did, I didn't read it. But I feel like I really don't know what's going to happen, and I'm still waiting. It's been quite a while for the next non-Axie IP. Right? We've had, I think, two. We've had Axie Doll and we've had Axie Quest. If there's one more, I'm sorry that I didn't get it, but we've had them and they were super fun. But I don't hear much about them anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like I'm not like worried, right? I'll be okay. But I'm a little worried. Like, what are we waiting for? Is it going to be a huge announcement, which has to be like one entire year of paperwork and all this crazy stuff and an acquisition and a huge Web2 brand? Or are we lacking? What do you guys think?
Um, Personally, I think they're lacking, and they're lacking real hard. I think that Sky Mavis, obviously, they want to maintain a lot of control and over their network, and they're not really willing to bring on like, a lot of people, like a lot of developers onto their network. And I understand their reasons for doing that, but it's also like you have to think about like the average developer and them wanting to build on Ronin, right? Why would they want to? Why would they want to build on Ronin as opposed to, Solana, Matic, Ethereum, right? Like what was the actual value proposition there? What does Ronin provide that these other guys don't? And, you look at Ronin, you look at its history. I mean, obviously we have the big hack, right? And, we have the developers and we have the history of Axie Infinity. And I think like,
yeah,
right, there's a lot there that like people look at and they're like, like it's just so much less of a risk for me as a developer. Just build on Matic. Why would I not go on? Why would you ever do Ronin as opposed to Matic or like Solana? Or like, right? Like why would you ever do that? I don't think there's really an answer for that, right? I don't think that Ronin really has a competitive edge. And I mean, technology isn't absolutely everything in crypto, right? Like obviously, like your brand carries a lot, but then I look at the brand of Axie Infinity and I'm like, they don't really have that either. Like, like they kind of tarnish that, unfortunately. And that's why I personally pivoted away from them. So I know that's like not like an awesome answer, but and it's kind of sad.
Facts.
It's facts, right? Yeah.
That's facts. I think you're very right about that, right? Like the reputation is super important. And my family members never talked to me about crypto. They just knew that I was doing some like Axie thing. And then the day of the hack, they're like, yo, Nash, what happened? Like, did you hear Axie got hacked?
Yep.
And like that was the only time that people that weren't my friends or like Axie friends specifically mentioned Axie to me.
Right.
And not only that, the people that used to play Axie and don't anymore, most of them really don't like it because of the communication aspect. So I think, the reputation is a little tarnished within a lot of the NFT community, or at least the play to earn community. But they definitely still have their core fans and core player base. And like, I mean, I'm still supporting them as much as I may criticize them. I still want them to succeed, and I still have Ron and all that. But I know a lot of people who are still like diehard Axie fans. I know a lot of people who have left, but I think that reputation, and you're right. Like why would they want to build on Ronin as compared to Solana?
Right.
I don't know. Right. Maybe I need to read an article on Ronin and figure that out, but I think you have a really good point.
I'll be honest, like, I spent a lot of time trying to answer that question because I was like super copium mode, right? Like I obviously like my entire brand on YouTube was built around Axie Infinity content for like a really long period of time, almost a year. I was making solely Axie content. And it came to a point where I was like, man, like I just don't see a future in this. So I read through like everything that like Axie Infinity had to offer. And I really had to ask that question to myself is like, do I really see a future in this? I had to ask myself that honest question. That was like a hard question to ask myself, obviously, because, I had dedicated so much time, countless hours making content, right? And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I personally decided, like, I don't think that Ronin has a future after this situation that happened. And that's why I pivoted off of it. Now, I would love to see them succeed in some way. I would be lying if I didn't tell you guys, like, I have a very sour taste in my mouth from the way that they handled that situation and many more before it. And I think a lot of other people do as well. And like you mentioned, Farmer, like a lot of people only know about Axie Infinity because of the $600 million hack, right? A lot of like mainstream finance YouTubers even went ahead and started only talking about Axie Infinity when the hack happened, right? Like CoffeeZilla only ever talked about Axie Infinity.
I think Graham Stephan too.
Max Mayer, like a lot of the guys that I watch that I really look up to, and that was another point for me too, where I was like, man, yeah, like this is really rough. Even your buddy, Aesop's Meet Kevin, right? Like, he obviously
tell us about that.
He was involved, but he didn't really talk about it on his channel until that, right? So.
Yep. Yeah. I know him personally for a little while, for about a year and a half now. Meet Kevin, and when I did the whole investigation about the potential insider trading, I went to him and said, hey, can you help me get this out there? Because I want people to know what's going on here. And I want to help push for accountability and try and get that to happen, try and get answers. And he put up a video and he was down to help me do that. So we went through all the evidence I had and all that. And that was the only time, and that plus the hack, when the hack occurred, was the only times he talked about Axie Infinity. And, that's a 1.6 million subscriber audience. Like you said, Graham Stephan, a lot of these other guys, CoffeeZilla, a lot of these people only ever talked about it with extremely negative events. And I think when it comes to other game studios coming on the network, I think the potential way to get new game studios on would be to give them bags. Like, I don't see any other way other than essentially give them a fat stack of cash.
Got to pay for the IP.
Like, yeah,
exactly. Like Sky Mavis has, at the end of the day, somehow their token value, they're still over $1 billion market cap. Like, there's still a lot of token value that they could access if they really wanted to. And then Ronin Network, of course, as well with that token. But they have a lot of value locked up in their tokens that they could access if they really wanted to. They could throw $10 million to get another game studio, maybe it's a smaller studio still, to come onto their network, but they could throw some serious cash at a smaller studio to get them to build on the network. I think that's the only chance, because again, like what CryptoKing was saying, what you guys were saying, you look at it objectively here, we have a $600 million hack, and if I'm about to come and build on this network for 2 years, I'm going to dig further than just the headline of $600 million hack. I'm going to dig and see, okay, what happened? This one engineer was looking to get a new job offer. They were on the company machine opening up these PDF documents, and then they got them hacked. They somehow had full access to the entire network. All the nodes were on the company server. They didn't have two different servers set up, like basic security stuff. You'd be looking into this if you're about to spend years building on the network. And you'd see this, and it's pretty hard to argue anything other than at some level there was incompetence, whether it's the CTO, the CEO. Someone had to have known that this engineer had full control over the entire network potentially, or the nodes were all on the one software network. They had would have had to known that stuff, and that was allowed to happen. And someone didn't spend the hour to remove the authorization from the DAO node. Like, there's a lot of these things that at the end of the day, it's hard to argue anything other than incompetence. And so I'm looking, if I was a game studio, I'd look at that. Then I'd look at the headlines of CEO potentially insider trading. And I'd look into that whole thing that I uncovered, because that's now on Bloomberg and a bunch of other, I think there's 15, 16 total articles that were written about that now. So a lot of news sources covered that. And they're going to look into that and see, okay, here's the story. What's Sky Mavis's response? Oh, the response is, we didn't do it. Trust me, bro. Okay, like, that's their response. They could have spent, and that's the thing that drives me crazy, is like, 3 hours would have gotten them all the evidence they needed to defend their case. They would have needed to go into their Binance account, take the screenshots, show pictures of the emails back and forth with Binance official, like some of those kind of things. And they could have censored some stuff. Like, there's a way they could have done it, but 3 hours tops, and they could have had evidence to defend their story. And they didn't do that with serious articles out there with some serious accusations. Like, that's the most alarming. Like, I would see that as someone coming on, and that would be very alarming to me. And so at the end of the day, I think you'd have to get smaller studio and essentially buy them out or pay them substantial amount of money to get them onto your network. Because again, why would you mess with this circus in a sense when you got all these other options?
Yeah. You're right. And we got to remember that, like, these studios, they put in so much time and effort on picking where they're going to start building, right? And they're going to look through all of this stuff. It's not like they're just going to gloss over that. And that's one thing I had to realize for myself too, is like, that's just the question, is like, what competitive advantage do they offer, right? That I personally believe there's none. There's zero.
You know what I just thought of actually is who is the audience on Ronin? Who are who's the player base you're going to be when you launch on Ronin, right? Unless you can bring more players in. And I think it's a big choice for a studio to choose, Solana or Ronin. And not only that, a lot of studios don't even like NFT games. They're like, I refuse to make an NFT game. Like, they just hate it.
Right.
So yeah, I think they're going to be very selective. And I'm actually really excited to see who the first non-Axie IP they bring on is. I've been waiting. I was waiting patiently at first, but it's been a while now.
Right. And that's where, like, I think their whole, like, brand and control thing kind of factors in here. I don't think that they will do that anytime soon at all. And I think it's almost kind of like an egotistical type thing. They just want Axie to be their brand, right? Like, and maybe they will have something soon, whatever. I want them to prove me wrong, but I don't think it's happening.
They have to have other things.
Right, they have,
because they have the whole Ronin network. Why not just make the Axie network then?
Maybe it's scalability. Maybe they don't believe that Ronin can really scale to that size, right? Maybe that's their issue. I think, like, they've had a lot of scalability issues in the past with Axie Infinity specifically. So maybe, like, Ronin has similar technological problems. I would love to kind of see the inner workings of how much traffic they can actually have on their network, right? Because I know even larger blockchains, like, you know, Cardano, for example, has major issues, and that's why not a lot of games build on Cardano, which is a massive network, right? They have issues with congestion when, you know, a lot of developers try to build on them.
Cardano has a lot of other issues that we won't talk about, though.
Yeah, but like that, it's just. It's just a hyper successful. Yeah, it's true. But like they're like a mainstream blue chip cryptocurrency that like a lot of people hold, right? And it's just a prime example. Like obviously, if they have problems, like I mean, come on, like Axie Infinity has to have at least like twice the amount of issues that they have. In my personal point of view.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I think something will definitely come eventually. I would just be doubtful it's going to be a big name that we recognize, and I bet it's going to cost them some serious either money or maybe it's terms. That's another possibility, is the terms of them going on the network. Maybe they're able to be chain agnostic and go on multiple chains, and maybe that's how they're going to get people on, is like, just add us as another chain and we'll help you pay for the integration, all that, and you can also be on Solana, Wax, all these other networks too. Maybe that's how they're going to get someone on. But I think it's definitely not going to be, regardless, it's not going to be an ideal situation at the end of the day, is how I would put it.
I'm not going to hold my breath. I'll put it that way. I'll let them do what they're going to do, but I'm living my best life, man.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate having you both of you on. We're going to end it here so you guys can go, but definitely appreciate it. I think this has been great talking to both of you. If you have any last minute thoughts, feel free to say that or plug your socials. Nash, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. You can follow me on Twitter at Farmer Nash _. And I just want to say that, remember, it's really cool to make money in NFT gaming, but that's not going to be sustainable. And realistically, if we're talking about how amazing the games are and we're showcasing new games and we're showcasing the technology and the amazing people in the community and everything else, that's really how you're going to make the most money, because I know that's what a lot of people want. The way you're going to be the most successful in the space is to show it to as many people as possible, get a lot of fans, and provide value to your fans. So I just want to say, as a group, let's try to stop pumping the wrong things, and let's try to improve the whole ecosystem within Web3 gaming.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it. No, I 100% agree with that. We just got to continue pushing forward and doing the right things and learning from our mistakes, right? I think that we had a lot to learn here in this last year. Like, I know I've personally grown tremendously just through the experiences that I've had in Web3, and I think that's an awesome thing, because I think all of us here can agree with that. And I think that, yeah, we got to continue focusing on the right things, right? We got to focus on the right way to have NFT games and promote the right types of economies and games. And yeah, it's going to take time. We got to really set our expectations realistically here. It's going to take time. Good things take time. But I still very strongly believe, even despite everything that happened, that Web3 crypto games, like, that's going to be the future of gaming, and it is going to be adopted on a massive scale. Might not happen as soon as we want it to, but it's still happening. It's just a matter of time, right? So just got to prepare ourselves for what's to come. And yeah, follow Aesop's on YouTube. He's awesome. He does a lot of NFT gaming content at Aesop's on YouTube, and at Aesop's CNG _CNG on Twitter. So I remember your handle.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you guys both for coming. It's been great, and we'll catch y'all on the next one.
All right. Peace, guys. Have a good one.